Now, toss is a word for throw. This is tossing. Tossing is like a soft throw. But when you combine it with turn, toss and turn, this is somebody who has trouble sleeping. Tossing and turning. Did you ever lie in your bed at night going, oh no, oh. That's tossing and turning. Tossing is like throwing. And then you have the literal turning. And we use this when you're having trouble sleeping because something is bothering you. Let's see how we can use it in a sentence. Here is a situation. Mary is trying to sleep, but she is uncomfortable. So she moves this way and she moves that way while she's trying to sleep. She doesn't really sleep. She can't sleep. We can say she was tossing and turning all night. There could be a million reasons why. We'll explain in a minute. But if somebody asks you, oh, did you have a nice sleep? You can say, no, I was tossing and turning. And that means you were uncomfortable and you couldn't sleep. For some reason, something was preventing you from sleeping. But now let's ask a why question with she was tossing and turning all night. Why? Why was she? Why was she tossing and turning all night? Which means, why couldn't she sleep? And here's the answer. The hotel bed was very uncomfortable. The hotel bed was very uncomfortable. She was tossing and turning all night because the hotel bed was very uncomfortable. All right, now let's give some advice. Let's practice giving some advice in this situation. We'll use could. She could reserve a more expensive hotel room. She could reserve a more expensive hotel room. Now, with this advice, we're either talking about now or in the future, but what we really have to do is shake our finger at Mary and tell her what she did wrong. It's too late. The problem already happened, but we can tell her she was bad for doing the wrong thing. How do you change she could reserve a more expensive hotel room into the past? She could have. She could have. She could have. She could have reserved a more expensive hotel room. She could have reserved a more expensive hotel room. So that's our advice. That's our suggestion. How can you put a little question at the end of that suggestion, which means, do you agree with me? If the original idea is she could have reserved, then the question, the do you agree with me question, should be couldn't she? Couldn't she have? She could have reserved a more expensive hotel room. Couldn't she have? Couldn't she have? Couldn't she have? She could have reserved a more expensive hotel room. Couldn't she have? Okay. What if you agree with that? What if you think that's the right solution? Or you think that's a good way of solving the problem? Then you must repeat my original idea. Yes, she could have. If I say she could have, couldn't she have, and you agree, you say yes, she could have. That's true. Yes, she could have. Yes, you're right. She could have. She could have reserved a more expensive hotel room, couldn't she have? Yes, she could have. You're right. I agree with you. That's true. Okay, now let's try the same situation, the same idea. She could have reserved a more expensive hotel room, couldn't she have? But now let's disagree with that. How would you tell me, that's not true, you're wrong, that was not possible? To disagree, you say the opposite of my original idea. No, she could not have. She could have reserved a more expensive hotel room. No, she couldn't have. No, that's not true. She couldn't have. She could have reserved a more expensive hotel room. Couldn't she have? No, she couldn't have. That's not true. I don't agree with you. No, she couldn't have. All right, let's see here. I'm trying to make this go faster. I'm talking fast. I'm reading the exercise, but I'm going faster than the words on the screen. So I have to wait for it to catch up. Okay, so we've got, she spent all night tossing and turning, meaning she couldn't sleep. She was very uncomfortable. Something was stopping her from sleeping. In this case, it was very literal. It was the mattress. It was physical. She spent all night tossing and turning. But she could have reserved a more expensive hotel room, couldn't she have? Yes, she could have. Yes, she could have. Yes, she could have. All right, let's try another example using tossing and turning. She spent all night... Oh, wait, that's done. Wait a minute. I don't know why that's repeating. Here's another situation. John is graduating from high school next year. He has to go to college, but he doesn't know what to study. It's really important for him to pick the right career. He doesn't want to change careers in the middle of his life. He thinks about it at night, and when he's trying to go to sleep, this problem comes to his head, and he starts thinking about it, and it prevents him, it stops him from sleeping. It makes it difficult to sleep. He's so worried about, what do I study in school? I don't know. It makes it difficult to sleep. So you can imagine, what should I do? What should I do? Tossing and turning in his sleep, or tossing and turning in his bed. It means he's having, something is preventing him or making it difficult for him to sleep. We can just say he's tossing and turning. We don't even have to say in bed. We understand what that means. Let's make a why question. So we have, he tosses and turns at night about choosing a career. Let's make a why question with tosses and turns at night. Why does? Why does he? Why does he? Why does he toss and turn? Toss and turn. Toss and turn. Why does he toss and turn? Why does he toss and turn at night? And here's the reason. Choosing the right career is a big step in his life. So he's worried about it. It makes him worried, and that's what he thinks about instead of sleeping. He tosses and turns at night. He tosses and turns at night because choosing the right career is a big step in life. Now let's give some advice with this information. Okay? He could see a career counselor. He could see a career counselor. That's our advice to him. Now, if we're offering that advice or mentioning that advice, what little question can you put at the back of this, which means, do you agree with me? He could see a career counselor. Couldn't he? Couldn't he? Because the original idea is in the negative, when you make the do you agree with me question, you have to use, because the original idea is in the affirmative. When you make the do you agree with me question, you have to use the negative. You have to say, couldn't he? Couldn't he? Couldn't he? He could see a career counselor, couldn't he? Now, if you agree with me, if you want to tell me that's true, you're right, I agree with you, then you repeat my original idea. My original idea is he could see a career counselor. So you say, yes, he could. Yes, yes, he could. He could see a career counselor, couldn't he? I agree. Yes, he could. That's true. He could. Okay, now let's use the same advice. He could see a career counselor, couldn't he? And how do you tell me you're wrong? That's not true. I disagree. You have to say the opposite of the original idea. The original idea is he could see. So you have to say the opposite. You have to say the negative. He couldn't. No, he couldn't. You're wrong. He couldn't see a career counselor. He could see a career counselor, couldn't he? No. No, he couldn't. You're wrong. That's wrong. No, he couldn't see a career counselor.